Standard time is the synchronization of clocks within a geographical area or region to a single time standard. But building clocks can be traced back to 3500 BCE, where Egyptians used vertical stick and used that stick to tell time. And basically, this is an early form of sundial. A sundial is a device that tells the time and day, and it consists of a dial and a gnomon, which then casts a shadow onto the dial. Now, many centuries past, mechanical clocks were invented in Europe at 14th century, and up until now we use this mechanical clock to tell time. The first standardized time throughout the region started in Britain, and standard time in time zones was instituted in US because of the trains. It was all thanks to the trains we have standardized time, because how can you keep a train schedule when each state has its own time? This was a problem because how do you keep accidents or collisions on the track if each train conductors use different clocks? To solve this, they standardized the time system.
Kobayashi. UTC, Coordinated Universal Time, is the basis for the civil time today. This 24-hour time standard is kept using highly precise atomic clocks combined with Earth's rotation. UTC is a standard commonly used across the world. The world's timing center have agreed to keep their time scales closely synchronized or coordinated, therefore the name Coordinated Universal Time. Universal Time was created at the International Meridian Conference in 1884. This is the basis for the 24-hour time system we know today. At the time, GMT was chosen as the world's time standard. The reference line or starting point, the prime meridian, was determined to be the transit circle at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, London. The transit circle is a part of the telescope's mechanics, and it is still cited as the prime meridian's original reference. Until 1972, GMT, also known as Zulu time, was the same as Universal Time. Since then, GMT is no longer a time standard. Today, GMT is the only name of a time zone that is used by a few countries in Africa and Western Europe, including the UK during winter and all year in Iceland. Pacific Standard Time or PST. Some places observe daylight time or summer time during the summer and therefore use Pacific Daylight Time in summer. It is an 8-hour behind Coordinated Universal Time or UTC. This time zone is in use during Standard Time in North America. Eastern Standard Time or EST. Some places observe daylight saving time or summer time during the summer, and therefore use ED or Eastern Daylight Time in the summer. It is 5 hours behind the Coordinated Universal Time or UTC. This time zone is in use during Standard Time in North America, Caribbean, and Central America.
Time zones are regions of the Earth that observes a uniform standard time for legal, commercial, and social purposes. Time zones tend to follow the boundaries of countries and their subdivision because it is convenient for the areas to keep the same time. There are imaginary vertical lines on the Earth that ranges from the North Pole to the South Pole, and this is called the longitudinal lines, or sometimes called the meridian. The meridian divides the Earth into 24 different time zones, each separated by 15 degrees apart, and every 15 degrees are separated by 1 hour time. So local time can be confusing if all the places on the Earth use their own local time. The smooth functioning of railways, airways, and other means of transportation and communication will be disrupted.
First, talk about the 12-hour clock. The 12-hour clock, which divides the day into 2 cycles, is mostly used in countries where English is the main language. You will still find it in use in several other countries. The time counting methodology has 2 equal periods of 12 hours. From midnight, denoted 12 a.m. or ante-meridian, to midday, denoted 12 p.m. or post-meridian, and from midday back to midnight, completing a full 24-hour cycle. The numbering runs from 1 to 12 in each period, with 12 representing 0 as a starting point. The basis of counting with the 12-hour clock is the the normal night and day version where the day consists of 12 hours characterized by the sun and the night consists of 12 hours characterized by the moon. The majority of analog clocks and watches in use today use a 12-hour clock. Phrases of referring to time periods where the 12-hour clock is common include nighttime, morning time, afternoon time, and evening time. You might be wondering what the difference between the 12-hour clock and the 24-hour clock is. The difference? It is just the difference in expression, as both are time conventions, with the former dividing the day into two periods and the latter continuing the 24 hours of the day continuously. Basically, the two time conventions are used interchangeably, with some regions that the world or the other parts of the world prefers one over the other. Next, we'll talk about the 24-hour clock. Basing its origin in ancient Egypt, the 24-hour clock has been used for centuries and will more than likely continue to be used for years to come. The 24-hour clock time convention runs the day from midnight to midnight for a period of 24 hours continuously. It is the most preferred time system in the world today, with many of the regions that have adopted the 12-hour clock using it concurrently, as it is recommended by international standards. The time counting system has the start of the day at midnight, denoted 0000, which runs through to 23:59. Most computers by default reflect the time in 24-hour formats, and it is also the most preferred time methodology of many militaries. Unlike the 12-hour clock, the 24-hour clock is viewed as being specific to timelines and being easy to interpret for most people. Medics throughout the world have preferred the 24-hour clock in recording patients' history, as they argue that the difference in interpretation of time would make a significant difference in a patient's treatment. If a different medical staff were to confuse the recorded time recorded and administer medicine to a patient at the wrong time, the resultant outcome could be fatal.
There are three types of time zones, which are GMT, PST, and EST. There are differences in each time zones. For us to convert one time zones to another, this should be taken into account. There is a difference of 5 hours between Greenwich Mean Time and Eastern Standard Time. There is a difference of 8 hours between Greenwich Mean Time and Pacific Standard Time. There is a difference of 3 hours between Eastern Standard Time and Pacific Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time is 5 hours behind from Greenwich Mean Time. Pacific Standard Time is 8 hours behind to Greenwich Mean Time. Pacific Standard Time is 3 hours behind to Eastern Standard Time. For example, the Greenwich Mean Time is 10 o'clock and you want to convert it to Eastern Standard Time. You have to subtract 5 from 10 in order to convert it to Eastern Standard Time. So, 10 minus 5 equals to 5. Then you have your Eastern Standard Time.
AM and PM. What do AM and PM stands for? The abbreviations AM and PM derive from Latin word. AM stands for ante meridiem, which means before noon, and PM stands for post meridiem, which means afternoon. The 12-hour system divides the 24 hours of a day into two periods lasting 12 hours each. The first 12-hour period is designated as AM. It runs from midnight to noon. The second period, marked as PM, covers the 12 hours from noon to midnight. Using numbers from 1 to 12, followed by AM or PM, the 12-hour clock system identifies all 24 hours of a day. For example, 5 AM in the morning and 5 PM is late in the afternoon. 1 AM is 1 hour after midnight, while 11 PM is 1 hour before midnight. Where is the 12-hour format used? Most countries around the world today use the 24-hour system. However, the 12-hour format, including AM and PM, is officially used in a number of countries, including the US, Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, and Canada, except Quebec. Why does the day have 24 hours? The Egyptians are thought to be responsible for dividing the day into 24 equal parts. One account suggests that this custom evolved because the Egyptians commonly used the base 12 counting 3 joints in their fingers, not including their thumb.